Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you can do if you find yourself constantly obsessively thinking about somebody. So this is something that can happen to anybody of any attachment style, secures the least amount, but even dismissive avoidance can experience sort of obsessive thinking and focus about another person. And a lot of this has to go hand in hand with limerence, but not necessarily anybody who finds themselves sort of like ruminating about another person in a romantic way is necessarily in an extreme form of limerence. We could sort of think of it as being along a continuum. I do have other videos on this channel about limerence in a lot more detail, but I'm going to focus really specifically on what you can do, not to understand limerence and break limerence, but to specifically break the habit of obsessive focus and thought about another person and where this is coming from. And I'll give you some tools and strategies. Before I dive into that, we are beginning our next 90-day challenge on March 1st. We have a coupon code in the description box below. You can click the link, enter the coupon code, and if you want to sign up, check it out. It's basically a whole bunch of like-minded people really doing this work together in a cohort led by one of our trained coaches who takes everybody through that 90-day challenge in detail, kind of oversees the process. And participants are in 4 live webinars per week with myself. And there are a tremendous amount of other events going on inside of the school, as well as having access to the 40 courses. There's a path and journey and direction for participants to take, recommended course orders based on your attachment style. And 96% of people in our first cohort reported being significantly more secure at the end of their 90 days. So you can check that out. And there's a money back guarantee if you don't have the best time and enjoy it tremendously. So, let's talk about this obsessive thinking. So there's 2 parts to this. I'm going to sort of target this from a limerence perspective to a certain degree in terms of the underlying focus. But then I'm also going to give you some habit breaking formulas to really break through this challenge or situation. If you find yourself focusing on somebody from the past, maybe an ex, maybe somebody who is just in your life, a coworker that you're having some kind of feelings for, somebody else, a friend, and you're like, I don't want to feel like this. It's distracting me and it's not the right time and it's preventing me from sort of moving ahead. Or you maybe even have a two-way connection with somebody, but you just don't want to focus on that person so much and derail the relationship by over attaching too early in the dating phase. So for all of those potentials, we are going to talk about how to really focus in on how to break down that obsessive thinking. So number 1, what you all need to know is that nothing we think and feel is random. So every time we are obsessively thinking about something, it's because of one of 2 things. Number 1, you have an unmet need. Your brain will really rev up your internal dialogue when you have an unmet need. Your subconscious mind is essentially creating this feedback that's trying to get your attention about how to meet the need. And so, if you think of, for example, you're so hungry and you can't get access to food for 12 hours because you're traveling and you forgot to eat before the flight for 12 hours, whatever it might be. You in that period are going to think lots of oh my gosh, I'm hungry. And you're going to be thinking about this. And that focus is a way of trying to get that need met. It's your subconscious mind trying to alert you so that you can do something about the need. That is exactly what's happening when we're obsessively thinking about somebody. We are obsessively focused on an unmet need. And it may not be that the need is unmet in total, but it can be unmet in direct proportion to how large that need is. So, for example, if you have a desire to connect with somebody, and that desire is 10 out of 10, and maybe you're in the dating phase of the relationship and you're just getting to know each other and just chatting a little bit here and there, and you're only actually focusing in on that connection and getting that out of 10, how big that need is only a 2, then that missing distance between the 2 and the 10, that 8-point distance can cause rumination, can cause you to feel even though that needs being met appropriately for how early it is in the relationship, if that need for love, connection, attention, physical touch, closeness, if those things are so big for you and so potent, then you're going to find yourself ruminating. The only other reason besides that our internal dialogue really like revs up and speeds up is if we're afraid of some kind of core belief being triggered. So if you've ever noticed, let's pretend as an analogy that you have this core wound from, let's say, a painful experience in childhood where maybe you felt like really excluded by friends, or maybe it was repetitive, it happened throughout childhood. And you have this exclusion wound and you have this painful core belief that says, I'll be excluded and people don't really like me that much. So let's pretend you're then going to attend a social event in a new program you're in. For maybe you're going back to school and making a career change. Maybe you are starting a job at a new place. And if you have these wounds, and then let's say you go to like a networking event or a social event with your program members, with your colleagues, you are probably going to be driving there. And in your head, you're going to start thinking things like, oh my gosh, what if this person excludes me? What if they don't want to talk to me? What if I feel left out? What will I do? What if I'm awkward? What if people don't like me? What if I don't make a good impression? And you're going to notice that as you're getting closer and closer to the potential trigger of those old core wounds, your internal dialogue is getting busier and busier and busier. And that's why the more we do like core wound reprogramming, and we release these painful stories, and the more we learn to meet our own needs, the mind becomes more still. We have like more clarity, creativity, innovation, space to think clearly and logically and rationally, and to feel into what's right for ourselves and set boundaries. And that happens the more distance we get between ourselves and these old painful stories from the past as we begin to reprogram them. And the more we feel comfortable if our needs aren't met from our external world, because we're used to meeting them halfway all the time. We're good. We can make it okay. Our gas tank is always okay. It's always at least halfway full just from relationship to self. And then all of the bonuses come from the external people in our lives meeting our needs. So it's a very important concept to really become aware of. And out of that, when somebody's in a position where they're obsessively thinking about somebody, it's because of those exact one of two things, or both. So either you have deeply unmet needs and you've got that like panic, like I need to get that need met. I'm just hungering for that need. And like these drops in the bucket are this promise of this need that can be met. And so that focus really like lights up and becomes obsessive and intense. Or the flip side is that you are afraid of abandonment, afraid of being rejected, afraid of some kind of old core wound in relationship to that person. And so then you try to obsessively think your way through how to avoid that thing, how to get the closeness, how to maintain it, how to hold on to it. And so like when you're trying to change the obsessive thinking, two of your first things to do are to recognize what the wound is underneath that's creating that obsessive thinking and do reprogramming work on that wound. So if you have this core belief, I'll be rejected, all relationships end. If you have some kind of belief or painful idea that says people get bored of me, people will leave, I'm not good enough, then you're going to obsessively think because you're going to be trying to outthink and avoid the wound being re-triggered or reactivated. And it's actually this trauma response that's coming up from the subconscious level, fearing this thing happening again, fearing the abandonment if you felt that way in childhood or felt emotionally abandoned in childhood. So you're reprojecting these old pain points onto something you value now. And that's where that obsessive thought is coming from. Or you're getting obsessed and overly attached to a need. And what that represents is how big that need is for you because of how unable you are to meet that halfway for yourself. And so it's like whatever those needs are that you're focused on from that person, you have to start showing up for and meeting in relationship to self, which only ever then allows you to more effectively and directly receive those needs from others, which fills your needs bucket faster. So all these things are really, really important to take into consideration. And the last thing I'll say about when you're in a position where you're obsessively thinking, and this is a very like practical tool or tip, is think of like obsessively thinking as also sort of like become a habit. Like when you're obsessively thinking, it's almost like become habitual. And it's usually because there's some kind of trigger. Now that trigger can be like the fear of abandonment or some kind of pain point trigger. But what you can also recognize that there are practical triggers, the person texting you, the person, your phone being on loud and hearing the text messages come through, the way you run into the person when you're walking through your workplace at work and that person works in your building, like the route you take, like all these different things. And so another really just practical tool is avoid your triggers. Like, recognize, okay, if I have these triggers that are showing up for me, let me remove myself from the practical triggers. Let me like just get that stuff that's going to then trigger and reinforce the thoughts about this person out of the way. So if it's social media, limit your time on social media, set boundaries. If it's your phone dinging and it's your friend and you're like, oh, I thought it was going to be the person, like turn the phone on silent. Have intentional times where you look at things. Just set boundaries for yourself. And that will also help from a practical perspective to break down some of that obsessiveness. And last but not least, which sort of goes in here with the same topic, is set a goal for yourself. Like, change your focal point from being on autopilot, which when it's on autopilot and we don't have an intention, a vision, a direction for ourselves every day when we wake up until the time we go to bed, we're waiting to fill our lives on autopilot, which means whatever just seems appealing or pleasure seeking, we're just going to allow ourselves to really latch onto and hold on to and focus on, versus if we're intentional about what our plan is for the day, what we're going to do to create, to impact, to show up, to whatever it might be that really resonates with you, if we change our focal point to that, this obsessiveness will start becoming a part of the background. Okay. And so part of breaking habits is also replacing one focus with a new focus. And you can apply that from a practical perspective as well. So hopefully that all makes so much sense. Really important topic. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're getting a lot of value out of this channel, and I will see you in the next video.